I've completely obliterated like a 10 by 10 patch of cattails just to see what happened. Pulled every single shoot. And year after year, you can do this with no ill result. You come back a few weeks later, there's just more cattail shoots. Your availability of harvest can be variable. So there's patches I know of that are really late to start sending up shoots. And then there's patches I know of that are like south-facing right on the side of the road, and they're putting out shoots like 2 weeks earlier than any other patch. For the shoots, you definitely need to focus on how you harvest them.
Guys, we are gifting this book on the channel right now. So this is Sam Thayer's Field Guide to Wild Edible Plants, a must-have for any forager out there. This is the book I probably get the most value from, and we want to pass the love along to you. So all you have to do is leave a comment on this video right now, and if I reply to your comment with the mushroom emoji, then congratulations. That means you won this gift. Clay, welcome back to the podcast. How's it going, my man?
Pretty good. Today was like 65 degrees. And sunny.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know, we know where you are. Others don't. Where are you located again?
I live just south of Traverse City, Michigan. So if you do the Michigander thing and you put your hand up, I live in the pinky.
Oh,
Nice.
okay. I've
actually never heard that before.
Oh, yeah.
Funny.
I guess Montana would kind of fit on the hand if you turn it horizontal.
Yeah.
Yep.
In a way.
Yeah.
That's fun.
That's so funny.
Everybody in
65,
Michigan does it.
wow.
We do not have the 65-degree blessing, but we are the snow is melting. I just came back from a really long work trip from Europe with like no snow, and then I come back to less snow than before. We've actually had we had a record snow in January in Montana, and this kind of goes with a theory we had because we had an insane berry season in 2024, and I heard like this Native American, what do you call it, like a proverb?
Wives' tale
just like that. If the berries are really prolific, it's going to be a really hard winter, and I think it's kind of true. So I don't know, because maybe it's like nature letting the animals fatten up, before it gets real bad. That would be kind of cool if there was some sort of clock like that. I don't know.
I'm very skeptical.
Yeah, I am too. But hey, it sounds cool.
Yeah.
So, Clay, I mean, a lot of people, we did a podcast before, and I definitely encourage everyone to go back to listen to that one. That one was on milkweed, a super prolific, awesome wild edible that grows, I think, in basically all places around the U.S. And today we'll get into another one of those really prolific ones that I think can provide a ton of food. But just, for the people who didn't listen to that one, who don't know who you are, give us a quick rundown on you as a forager, I guess.
I got my start foraging about, like 18, 19 years ago. And
so you're one of the goats. You're definitely one of the goats for the people that don't know.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't that's such a weird title, and I'm unfortunately it's like it's very hard to like feel that honor for myself, when I'm friends with Sam Thayer and Arthur Haynes.
Yeah, you're just being humble.
Yeah. But anyway, so I got started foraging about 18 or 19 years ago, and I've been just interested in it ever since. It's and I started teaching about 15 years ago. So so I will say I started teaching before I should have been. That's just like kind of my thing, though, I guess. Like I learn better actually when I teach things.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's a very proven way of doing things. I'm the same way. If I can do something once and then teach someone to do it, I'll do it perfect the next 30 times. But when I teach them how to do it, it's terrible.
Yeah.
We learn how not to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Well, I hope to find myself at one of your classes one of these days. Sadly, I'm so far away now. I should have done that when I still lived in Wisconsin back in the
Yeah,
day.
Mhm.
But we'll have to try to make a trip out there sometime. That would be really fun.
that would be cool, but also I would love to go to Montana. In fact, just last week, me and my son were talking about, maybe summer vacations, and he goes, "Why don't we go to Montana?"
Well, dude,
That'd be so
definitely
fun.
you're more than welcome to come stay with us here.
Yep.
Ideally, you come during a time where we can actually forage some stuff too, you know.
Mhm.
We don't have the longest season here, but I mean, we've been really even getting into some winter foraging, but the summer, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. And also probably a lot of plants that you haven't, explored too much yet
Yep.
just because of the different terrain.
Mhm.
It's been a challenge for me too, kind of coming from the more, Midwest and then kind of starting over here with a lot because there's very different terrain and very different plants. But how was the foraging season for you last year? Did you get out much?
Mm, yeah, I got out, did a lot of foraging, but I actually kinda reverted a little bit last year and started doing, like, a bigger garden.
Oh,
Yeah,
So,
cool.
I saw all
yes.
that.
Yeah, so I still got out and foraged. I still did all the normal stuff. I just kinda took it back a notch and did a little bit more I bought a house in 2023, and I have 1/3 of an acre, and I
That's
don't
perfect.
I don't do anything half-assed, so I, like, turned most of my yard into a garden.
Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's what we wanna do, so that's great.
yeah,
You even wrote,
it
like I think I remember, didn't you write a whole article about, like, how you used to think you could just sustain people on like, people could just sustain themselves on foraging, but then you kinda had this awakening that gardening
yeah,
might also play a big role in the whole resilience aspect of things?
yeah, yeah, I think I changed my mind big time on that because I used to, like, really believe that foraging was something that could sustain everybody, and then I was just like, "No, man, that's not possible." And
Right.
then even, like, looking back at the tribes in the United States, for instance, they almost always had some, like they were either, like, eating traded foods that were grown by other tribes or doing some growing on a small scale themselves.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the trading was a big thing, even, like, trading foraged stuff and meat and all that.
Yep.
Yeah, I've kinda come to the same conclusion, I think there we can definitely sustain ourselves, like, on a local level and,
Mhm.
but, like, foraging is just one aspect of that, and then the
Mhm.
homesteading, community gardens, hunting, fishing, it all kinda plays into it. Totally.
Yep.
Is
Mhm.
there anything, you're particularly excited about for this year? Anything you already got planned foraging-wise?
I I don't really, and this is, I guess, the part that gets a little old after you've been doing it for a long time. Like, I'm excited about the same things, but, my excitement usually comes from, like, planning trips to other places and, like, trying new foods in different places. So, as far as around here, it's like I have a couple plants that I've never found in the wild that I know exist here, and, I resist the temptation to use iNaturalist to find them.
Hmm.
Uh,
Nice.
I wanna find them organically.
Mhm.
Um, but
Yeah.
Fair
that
chase.
yeah, yeah. But that's basically it, and those are like, one of them is Lobelia inflata. That's
What is that?
it's a medicinal. It's like, basically toxic, but in small quantities, you can take tinctures, and it actually opens up the lungs and makes it so you can breathe. It's like an asthma medicine. It's, like, really good for, like, if you've ever had, like, a feeling like it's hard to breathe, you can actually take it and feel like 10 minutes later, you're like, "Wow, I can actually take in more oxygen."
Whoa,
Very cool.
that's
Yeah.
really cool. I have asthma, so that might be a good one to have in my
Mhm.
cabinet one day.
Yeah.
Are there any trips besides the Montana trip you talked about that you're planning on going on this summer that you're excited about?
Um, no, I mean, right now I'm in, like, currently dire monetary straits because I just had, um my car's transmission go out.
Oh,
Oh, dang.
classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually had to go and put, a $2,500 transmission on a credit card, and then I gotta, like, pay luckily, one of my good friends is a mechanic, so he's putting it in for me, and he's letting me do, like, payments to him, but, it's been, like, kind of a nightmare season, so
Yeah.
Dang. Well, we hope
Get
that gets
that.
better soon.
Definitely.
Well,
yeah,
if you do come to Montana, it'll be, we can house you for a few days for sure.
Yes.
So that should
sweet.
be cheap then.
Yeah.
Much cheaper. Airbnbs out here are atrocious.
Oh
So
my god. I mean, you guys live near Bozeman or in Bozeman?
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Like
Well,
15 minutes outside.
alright, so I too live in a tourist town. And so I know what it's like. I mean, some of the Airbnbs here are like $2,000 a week or something,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something just nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't even get started on hotels.
Yeah.
Yep.
But if I went to Montana, I would probably end up like staying with you guys or camping.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of camping opportunities. That's for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. I really want to go. I actually want to make more trips toward, where you are. Because, like, a lot of nuts. I really want to explore the nuts more.
Mhm.
Walnuts, hickory nuts, acorns. And we just don't have any of that here, which
Yeah.
really is a bummer because I'm just learning so much more
Yep.
about them as a really like great, high nutrient, high calorie food source,
Mm-hmm.
So like we got some acorns from Wisconsin that we've been storing, so I got to get to processing those. But yeah,
Do you guys have beaked hazelnuts there?
that is a good question.
I have no
I'm gonna
idea.
write that down right now. I don't know.
I'm
Beaked hazelnuts.
Yeah, I mean,
It's the first time I'm hearing of them.
I would venture a guess at saying that if there's any nut that you do have, it's probably beaked hazelnut.
Beaked hazelnut.
Yeah, which
I
is
know
might
there's
have to
some
send me
walnut
this.
trees on like private property, but
Yeah,
I've never
there's
seen them
some
in
of
the
that.
wild.
A little bit of that.
the thing
I'll look into that.
the thing I notice though when I do travel to the west, is it seems like not very diverse.
Yeah.
I was just in Flagstaff, Arizona last April, and I was like looking around at the trees, and I'm like, this is boring, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, the trees, it's
Wow, that's
true.
the same tree as the tree
You
over
see-
there.
yeah.
Nice.
Mountains is like conifers, maybe some aspen patches, maybe some like I found out there's a Rocky Mountain Rocky Mountain maple, but it's
Mhm.
like not worth tapping. It's usually like
Tiny.
more small diameter tree or shrub. But yeah, beaked hazelnuts. You might have to help me find the scientific name for that because if we have that, I'd be very pumped.
Yeah, it's
I'd be very pumped.
Corylus cornuta. Yeah.
Okay, Corylus cornuta.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, we don't have the nuts and all those things, but we do have luckily the plant we want to mostly chat about today, and that is also a prolific one. Me and Lindy are total novices, but I think you've explored it a good amount, and that plant is the cattail.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I mentioned last time we talked milkweed, which is super prolific, and cattails. I mean, I think most people listening have probably, even if they are new to foraging, come into contact with cattails in some way or another.
Yeah.
Right? Like everyone. We'll get into what they look like and all, but I feel like most people are gonna know what they are already, which is great. So, yeah,
I was just gonna say,
cattails,
like,
like,
cattails
what
are
were you gonna
basically
say?
like everybody knows what they are. Like, they look
Mhm.
like little corn dogs. I mean, especially here in Michigan, they are everywhere.
Mhm. I just watched
Cattail,
a video of this little kid teasing his brother, and he gave him a cattail and pretended like it was a hot dog and had him take a big bite
Oh my God.
into this thing, and he just, the seeds are going everywhere, and
Yeah.
it was
That
very
that would
entertaining.
be that would be a fun trick to play on your little brother or
Mhm.
big brother. I might have to do that. Hopefully he's not listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be so mean.
Yeah, super mean.
Yeah.
And we'll get into what that hot dog looking thing all is. But like, first of all, let's like start with why even forage for cattails?
Mhm.
I'd love to hear it from you, Clay. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, for me, I typically harvest 2 parts only. Um, and that is the shoots in the spring and then the pollen later in the summer.
Mm.
Um, I've never once taken the effort to go and harvest the rhizome, which I know probably sounds like sacrilegious to like some foragers, but I've never done it because of the fact that I have so many other sources of carbohydrates and starch on the landscape already here that I've never thought it a thing worth doing. And then the other part that I never forage because I don't think it's digestible. I think that it just kind of passes through us, and that is
Mm.
the green immature heads um, that I've eaten at a foragers gathering. And you know, not to be too explicit here, but it's like you see it the next time you relieve yourself.
Yeah, it's like corn.
Yeah, it's like
I've
Just sticks around.
I
yeah.
have read about this phenomenon you speak of. Yeah,
Yeah,
they do mention that in some of the foraging books. I've yet to try it myself,
yeah.
Mhm.
but so that is the spike, right? I think they call it a cattail spike, which is the hot dog looking thing we just talked about.
Well, no, so that is so on cattails, there's one lower one and one higher one, and that would be the male portion, which has the seed, or sorry, which has the pollen. And then as the pollen goes, that deteriorates, and you are left with the female portion.
Ah,
Interesting.
okay. So the
So they
later on the part,
self-pollinate then?
yeah, probably.
They they can. I don't think it's good. I don't think that will produce anything though.
Mm,
So
okay.
they grow in such dense patches, and they're wind pollinated. So most of the time. And then if you're out there collecting pollen, you're making a crazy
Yep,
mess of it anyway. Yep.
gotcha.
Yeah. Well, I want to get into like each part in a sec here. Maybe we can like just talk about each a bit more in depth. But it sounds like a reason why you like cattails is because of the versatility, maybe, or the availability. Is that right to say? Like it's a very available plant, and like you just mentioned, it grows in very dense clusters, right? Dense
Yep.
stands. So if you find them, you usually can harvest a lot.
Yeah. So very available. That's a good quality. We also have 3 species throughout most of the range. Um, and they taste good. I mean, if you the pollen is my favorite. I love adding it to foods because it makes things like bright yellow, and then it gives it a little like nutty taste. But the shoots are really good too. They taste just like cucumber.
Really.
Oh,
Mhm.
So in the shoots, for you, the shoots are the young growth that comes early in the year, right?
Yep.
Okay, I think I got some pictures. Well,
Yes.
we can
So
get into that.
for the shoots, you definitely need to focus on how you harvest them because if you go out and just kind of grab with one hand, you'll likely break it.
Hmm.
What you're looking to do is actually kind of pull directly up with. I use both hands, and it separates from the rhizome.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So rhizome meaning the root that's like in the ground. Here, let me share my screen quick.
So if you
I
take
think
that shoot off, is it going to produce again for the next year if you don't pull the full plant out?
Um, as long as that rhizome is still there, I have. This is like maybe bad science on my part, but I've completely obliterated like a 10 by 10 patch of cattails just to see what happened. Pulled
Mhm.
every single shoot, and year after year, you can do this with no ill result. You come back a few weeks later, there's just more cattail shoots.
Interesting.
wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm showing you, the
Yeah.
picture, that this is the shoot, right?
Yep.
So it's basically, for people listening, it's like the young growth of a cattail without a flower stem yet, just
Mhm.
kind of leaves bunched together, and
Looks a
they're
little
pretty
bit
low
like
grown.
a green onion.
Yeah, just a giant green onion.
Yeah.
Except for the kind of wasteful part here is that you're not eating any of that green stuff. So
Really?
when you pick a cattail shoot, you're only taking the tender white stuff. So like I'll peel off a couple layers and then, you might get exposed more, but you're lucky sometimes to get like, 8 inches.
Really?
Gotcha.
So let's say the whole cattail shoot's like, what, 24 inches maybe? You're only left with like 8 at the end.
Yep. Maybe.
Are there
Okay.
any uses you found for the extra green?
Nope.
Or is it just kind of toss it? Yeah.
Well, you know what? Now that brings up a good question because I have chickens now. So I wonder if I could like give them to the chickens and they'd eat them.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
or you could at least compost it probably.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know I read somewhere that you can use part of the cattail plant for like bushcraft type
Mhm.
things. So you could weave baskets and stuff from them. I don't know how well it'll hold
I
long
think it's
term, but
a pretty well-used material for that, like
Mhm.
mats and chairs
Mhm.
and roofing.
So if you're crafty, I guess there's
Ex-
a use too.
yeah, except for the fact that like while you're harvesting cattail shoots, you're picking them when they're like 12 to 15 inches tall.
Mhm.
And
Right.
and as a person that has actually made cattail crafts, you're harvesting them when they're like 6 feet tall for that.
Okay.
Okay.
I
So
see.
not really used once you harvest them like that. Here's another picture on iNaturalist. Um, just kind of showing these shoots emerging out of the water, kind of what Clay was just mentioning. They come out of that rhizome. And this, you said, is like early summer, right?
This would
Usually.
be like here, probably late April to early May,
Okay.
Hmm.
something
So
like
probably
that.
for us, probably pretty similar, maybe a little later in like the colder parts here in Montana. That's sweet. Yeah, the shoots is something I read about, and I think they also call them like Cossack asparagus or something like that.
Mm,
Is one another, or like leaf hearts, because you really, like you mentioned, you just eat that inner part. And you did say like you kind of got to peel a lot of that off. Is there a certain method for doing that,
I
like
mean,
to
they
get
have,
that core?
yeah, they have very visible leaves, and when you separate it too, they kind of just have lines that follow around, so you're just pulling off the outer leaves.
Mm.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then maybe like you can eat, like, I imagine you could just test to see where it's really fibrous and you don't want
Mhm,
that.
So
exactly.
Just
kind of
maybe,
like a celery stalk.
yeah, use that
We got
like
the leafy in the middle.
the fingernail test, maybe like press into it with your fingernails a bit if you got them. Um, yeah.
um, except for what weirdly we like celery, and it's like actual dental floss.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So crazy. Like of all the
Yeah.
vegetables, I wouldn't go forage for celery. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
it is
I've
pretty
always
fibrous.
yeah,
Mhm.
definitely is.
Yeah, it is like dental floss. You could probably use it for the same thing.
Yeah,
That's the original use, and we just didn't know.
yeah. I I'm really blown away that people just eat celery.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I love celery in soup.
Oh, yeah.
The flavor is good, but like I would never just like, munch on a celery.
Soups and
Or in
stews and, like, fish
stews.
salad.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's just awesome. Yep.
Cooked, it's bearable. So
Mm, cooked and bearable.
let's back up a bit though. I want to get into like all the different parts of the cattail a bit
Okay.
more, but first I want to like, it'd be cool to hear what, because you mentioned there's 3 species. Do you know them off the top of your head?
Yeah.
Which
Mm.
ones we have?
We have the broadleaf cattail, which is Typha latifolia,
Okay,
and then we have Typha angustifolia, that's narrowleaf cattail, and
right.
there is considerable debate on whether that is actually non-native or if it's native,
Mm.
in the, like, botanical communities, because Typha angustifolia, the narrowleaf cattail, exists in Europe.
Mm.
So there's thought that maybe it was natural here or maybe not. And then you have the intermediate between the two. When those two hybridize, they make a species called Typha X glauca.
Ah, okay. I saw that one. I didn't know that was the hybrid. I saw that in my research.
Yep.
That's interesting. So really 3. Which one do you forage for all, or do you usually have like one you seek out?
I preferentially like Typha latifolia for the shoots.
Okay.
And that is simply because they're bigger.
Got it.
As far as
the broad leaf.
Yeah. As far as pollen goes, doesn't matter. They're all the same.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
When are you
Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead.
When are you harvesting the pollen?
What
time is
probably, I want to say, like, it could be dependent on the year, like when spring comes, because that can be variable as well. But probably somewhere mid-June to early July. And the other cool thing is, like, depending on your ecosystem, depending on how much sunlight each particular patch receives, your availability of harvest can be variable. So there's patches I know of that are really late to start sending up shoots. And then there's patches I know of that are like south facing right on the side of the road, and they're putting out shoots like 2 weeks earlier than any other patch.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's good to know. So that means there's kind of like a drawn out season depending on the area.
Yep. But one thing I will say real quick is that if you are going to harvest cattail pollen, you can't wait. It's like 5 days or 6 days.
So when do you know that it's ready? Like when
you see bright yellow, like cattail pollen, like the whole.
Get in there.
Yeah, you just got to get in there and start whacking them off. I don't know what else to call it. That's
whacking off cattails.
I bring like a big pan or something with like deep sides, and I just knock it in. Boom.
Okay,
Yep.
like a pot, you're saying?
Yeah, something that's not going to allow things to escape with the wind.
Got it. All right. Okay. Yeah, because they're super. They spread through wind, so that makes sense that the wind would easily take away your bounty there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Some people do this thing where they cut the heads off and then like stick them into like a bag and like let the pollen fall out. I personally feel that's a little unfair. like I want to spread the cattail pollen around. So like for me, it's like a fun. I just put on some muck boots and just wander through, and by the time I leave the patch an hour or two later, like I'll be like bright yellow, like all my clothes, my arms, I'll have pollen in my beard and my hair.
That seems like such a perfect, I'm going to take my friends on their first foraging trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make everyone yellow.
Does it come out of your clothes pretty easily?
Oh,
or
yeah.
Okay. So don't have to worry there too much.
I'm definitely going to do that. That's so fun.
When I'm wearing my Gucci clothes.
Yeah. The Montana Gucci, it's called Patagonia. The Patagucci.
Patagucci. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So, the pollen are really, really interesting. I've never harvested any sort of pollen because I know you can do pine pollen. People do that for like, supposedly it raises testosterone and all that.
That's going to be the new thing that we're getting ads on for Instagram.
Yeah.
Pine pollen raises testosterone. There we go. Calling it now.
Yeah.
Especially you, Lindy.
Yeah. I get all the ads. I'm like, I don't even look at this stuff.
Yeah.
Got so many tallow soap bars. Like,
yeah.
That's funny.
But, what were you going to say?
Oh, just, I'm pretty sure that pine pollen does actually raise your testosterone.
Yeah, I've read it before. It's definitely a thing. Like it's one of those natural testosterone boosters.
Seems like a company we're forming here.
Yeah. Well, there's already Daniel Vitalis has Surthrival, and they actually sell a pine pollen supplement.
Oh, fun.
Right, I have
Yeah.
heard him
Shoot.
talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Beat
Lindy,
us
we're
to
late.
it.
We're late. But we have more pines around here, so maybe,
Mm.
Yeah.
we got more
Um,
supply.
I'm curious if you guys, because of all your pines, you're just walking around, if you, like, ingest it in the spring and you're just like, "Oh, I'm amped up."
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god, I need to
I
pay
get
attention
so
to that.
jacked.
I need to start
Every
measuring
time I
my
go for a hike.
I need to measure my testosterone points,
Yeah.
before and after the pollen season.
I
It's
start
actually
growing a
really good.
beard. You know?
That's
Oh, man.
Everything
actually
makes sense now.
really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should pay attention to that more. But
Uh,
for the oh yeah, what were we gonna say?
I just wanted to, actually get back on track here and say that so the main part is the rhizomes, right? That's
Yeah,
the underground. Those are the horizontally spreading roots. They're
right.
like they're an underground stem. Um, and what they do is they just travel underground, and year after year, they get longer and longer, and they start putting up more shoots. So the cool thing, and I said this during the milkweed, is that when you're harvesting cattail shoots, if you harvest a whole bunch of cattail shoots, they could actually be coming from one single
Mm.
rhizome. So a lot of people have this like fallacious view of foraging, which is that, you know, I have to be like, I treat everything like it's so delicate and, oh my God, I gotta, pray over it and, all this stuff. But things are like so resilient. When we look at animals, they're not out there like, you know, giving a crap. They're just like, "Rah, rah, rah, rah,"
Yeah,
Um, and that's not to say that we should all just go out and destroy nature. But when there's abundance in nature, like cattails, we should be able to take advantage of that abundance.
right.
Mhm.
Um, And then there's the rhizomes, then there's the shoots, and then you get to the second stage where it starts to put up a stem, and then you'll see that it's got the 2 flower heads. One, like I said earlier, that's the male on top, and then there's the female below.
Let me pull up a picture. I think I got one
Yeah.
of the spike here.
Are there any animals out there that rely on cattails as their food sources, do you know?
Muskrats love to
Mm.
eat cattails. Um, I know beavers will eat cattails as well. Um
Hmm.
Yep, there's the green spikes that are like corn.
Yeah, so we're looking for people listening, they're like really slender, thin green spikes. And these so you're saying this is the male part,
That is the
or is
male
this the
part.
whole okay. And the female part will sit under this?
So it looks like the ones in this picture are male and female both.
Oh, they're both. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that picture specifically is definitely the narrow-leaf cattail.
Just because of how slender it is.
Yep,
And this is you would say this is a good stage, like a nice leaf green.
yep,
When it's just about the same color as the leaf, that's a good time to harvest these. Break that
yep,
top part off.
yep. I mean, I think you can do both if they were at that stage, kinda. I mean, how I've seen people do it is, like, kinda turn a knife sideways and just sorta scrape it off.
Hmm.
To see if it comes off,
Yep,
basically.
yep,
And you want it to be still, like, pretty firm, right?
yep,
Kinda it kinda looks
definitely.
like corn on the cob, like a really like a miniature corn. It's kinda what it looks like, just not yellow, more green.
To be charitable, I'm sure it feeds your gut bacteria? I don't
Hmm.
know.
Maybe.
Yeah, but not you're saying it just but it is supposed to be, like, an interesting thing to add to, like, a dish. Like,
Yeah,
people do say it, like, you can eat it, like, raw or you can cook it in butter, I think I read.
Yeah, I
So
guess if the
this
flavor's good and you don't care about absorbing your food,
yeah.
have at it.
Yeah,
well, people do that all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, so there's a classic, corn dog.
Yeah, so this is the same thing, same spike, just further down in the season. At
Yep,
this point, it's a bit more brown, yellow. It's looks like it's maybe I mean, this might be the broadleaf, probably, it's a bit thicker. At
yep.
this point, you probably wouldn't harvest it anymore, huh? Because it's showing, like,
For
brown.
for the for the pollen, it looks like it's right at the either tail end of the pollen or at the beginning. of when it's starting to put out a lot of pollen. Yeah.
But not for eating the actual cob part.
No,
spike. Yeah, way too
definitely not.
far.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Cool.
So, yeah, that's the gist of the parts of the plant. You got 4 parts, and that's why in all the old books, like when I got first into foraging, you saw it called the supermarket of the swamp.
Right here.
Yeah.
Right into
Wow.
Talking to Wild Asparagus. He calls it the supermarket of the swamps.
Yeah. Which I, kind of agree with, kind of don't. I mean, basically just where you're at, it makes a big difference. Because like I've seen cattails all over the country, and they're the most prolific in the Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, the areas around the Great Lakes. Yeah.
I mean, we have them around the rivers here too, though. A lot.
Yeah.
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 We
I
have
think
them around little ponds and stuff.
We never really even touched on where they grow. I mean, they love the marshy. They need water, right?
Yep.
To even thrive. I don't think they can really grow without the water.
They cannot.
So, yeah. So where would you like around rivers, streams, lakes, marshes? That's where you'd be looking.
I would preferentially always go to a place that is away from housing and industry, and maybe even like not downstream of any of that either, because aquatic plants are sucking up all that water.
Yeah.
And as we know, there's like an assault on water in our world, and we've got like microplastics and just everything, right?
Heavy metals.
Heavy metals. Yep. Cattails are, yeah, they're interesting though. Latifolia. I might get this backwards because I got to remember here, but Typha latifolia seems to grow in deeper water, and Typha angustifolia, the narrow leaf, seems to grow in shallower water.
Okay.
So they kind of are separated by which is which. And for those listening, that might be incorrect, and it might be the other way around. I'm trying to jog my memory here. And then obviously like its hybrid is right in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So I don't know what you guys have. Oh, and then there is a southern species called Typha domingensis. And that's like a kind of more closely related to the narrowleaf cattail.
Okay. So when you say you wouldn't even go downstream, like you wouldn't go to a river necessarily, or you would just find a marsh, is that kind of like your prime spot usually?
Yeah, where I like to go is marshy ponds or like adjacent wetlands where I personally like to harvest cattails not out of standing water. So if you can find mucky area that you can just walk in, then that's preferential to me, because like there's a whole other aspect of it when you're harvesting cattails. Oh, I'm totally blanking here. There's one other part that Sam Thayer has popularized, and that is cattail laterals.
Oh yeah, I did read
Yeah.
about those.
Yeah.
So that's the fifth part, basically.
Yeah, that's the 5th part that nobody ever ate. It's just the rhizome, but it's just the outgrowth of the rhizome that year. It's that year's growth.
Okay.
So it's
So
a little spike.
You get that more in the fall then?
I think that would be late summer.
Late summer, fall.
Yeah.
I think hang on, I might have in my notes, I might have a video of him harvesting that. Because yeah, I remember reading that in his book. Hang on. Let me see here quick. Because he did in his book, he really says that is like the best part. Did you ever go after the laterals?
I haven't yet, but I am hoping to do that this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I think this is like one of his big TikToks. I remember this. Yeah. So for people listening, it's Sam Thayer just like in the marsh talking about the cattails, and he's digging deep in the ground. So it
He
looks
looks like
like
he's
he's kinda
going in for
stick
fish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, now he's pulling out probably like a
Wow.
what is that, like a 12-inch, probably,
Yeah.
Mhm.
really white, almost like radish-like looking, lateral,
Yep.
and that's like the soft, crunchy part you can eat.
Yep.
That's cool,
And then
Yep.
he's
and he's
chowing
eating it raw,
down.
so you can
Yeah.
eat it raw. That's pretty cool.
Sam is definitely, like, not afraid of just getting right there in the muck.
Yeah, I'd be worried about snapping turtles doing that,
Oh, I
you
know.
know?
Yeah. I don't I really think he doesn't care. It's just,
I'm sure he doesn't. He's
uh,
like, "I lose a finger, it's all for the foraging. It's part of
yeah.
the process."
Well, the other thing is not a lot of people know this, but Sam is like an expert herpetologist. Like he all the stuff that he knows about plants, he knows all those same things about all the reptiles and amphibians.
Oh, wow.
That's so cool.
That's
Yeah.
insane.
So, maybe he, like, intuits that there's not gonna be any snapping turtles. I don't know.
He can feel
It
it.
could be.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
one day I'll get into eating wild, reptiles and amphibians. That's an
Yeah.
undiscovered, unused food source right there.
Yep.
But cattails, I mean, so we just to recap quick, we had the shoots, those hearts, we had the spikes, which are the top, the laterals, now the pollen and the rhizome. So we got, yeah, 5 edible parts. And the rhizome is really the starchy part, right? If you're looking for carbohydrates, it's probably that's the one you'd want to go for.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yep. And
What about
that's
the
yeah.
what were you saying?
That's the part that, like, some survivalists, like, if they do like, I don't know if you've ever done, like, a survival trip where you just bring, like, a knife. Um, like, I have, but I luckily never had to do the cattails, but, I had a friend who did a 5-day survival trip, and he said he ate nothing but cattail rhizomes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Must have been an interesting experience, but hey,
Yeah.
I mean, it is kind of touted also as like one of the like top survivalist plants for
Yep.
food, and I think you can use the the cobs once they are pollened out, I guess, or bloomed. Then you can use them for fire starter and all that.
Yep.
It's
Mhm.
definitely got a lot of value in that sense. So, how would you? I mean, have you tried? You said you didn't try all parts yet, right? You
I have
definitely
not
haven't tried the laterals. Okay.
I haven't tried no, that's not true. I have eaten the laterals, but I've only eaten, like, 2.
Okay.
Mm.
Like, just broke
So
off, like
if you were to like rank them, could you rank them in terms of like edibility?
yeah, my favorite would be the pollen.
Okay.
I just think it's got such a great, like, nutty taste to it. Then probably the laterals, and then I would do the shoots, and then just based on the taste of the laterals, I would say the rhizomes, but acknowledging that I've never eaten the rhizomes, and then last would be those horrible spikes.
Man, but those seem to be the easiest to get. Why do they have to be the horrible ones? Like,
I don't know. Yeah, no
Just
idea.
how it is.
I'm gonna try it all and gotta make my own, form my own opinions, but um I really, really want those spikes to be really tasty and edible and all that because I can just see them being so easy to gather in
Mm,
quantity and
yep,
just quickly, and I'm all about that.
yep.
Okay.
That is an important point that you just brought up, though. You're gonna make your own opinions, and that's, I at every single foraging class I've ever taught, I tell people, like, "Don't listen to me, like,
Mhm.
you go out and try this for yourself," because I pass up a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I
you've been
just
foraging for so long.
yeah,
You've been foraging for so long, you probably know, like, what you really want, you
yeah,
know?
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
yep. But, cattails are amazing. I mean, like, just like milkweed, they're super abundant. There's a lot of different parts and you can harvest over a big time window, which I like.
Right. But, like, if there's so much food value, why the heck are they why is no one talking about them? Like, why aren't we cultivating them?
Mm,
It seems like it would be a great plant to do that with, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like cultivation happens for things that are delicious but rare,
Mm.
and then you don't really get things cultivated. I mean, I'm trying to think, like, is there anything that's, like, cultivated but already abundant?
Yeah.
Hmm.
You
That's a
know?
good
You're
point.
saying, like, why would they go through the I guess with why would they go through the work of cultivating it if it's already abundant in the wild? I
Yeah.
guess with cultivation, I mean more like farmed. Like,
Yeah.
why aren't there cattail farms, you know? I guess,
Mm.
yeah, 'cause you could just go out and get them. That is a good point.
Yeah.
And they are so resistant to harvesting.
Yeah.
Like, you can just really go all out
Yeah, it'd be
and get a
very
bunch
hard
of them.
to harvest cattails on an industrial scale.
Yeah.
I can't really imagine.
I feel like they yeah. I mean,
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
they do it with rice.
Yeah, but that rice is not the same. Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
wild rice that you buy in the store that's, like, jet black, that is definitely not the same as the wild rice that I
Yeah.
harvest.
It's like $40 per bag for
Yeah.
like a 5-pound bag of rice.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And then the cultivated stuff, it's like you cook it for an hour and a half and it still tastes like you're chewing on leather.
Mhm.
Yeah. That is that is true sometimes. I get Yeah, I mean, I still need to get some of your wild rice. We need to make a deal there. So maybe when you come to Montana, you can bring me a little bit.
Nice.
Maybe
Will
that'll
do. I have so much right now, and honestly, my kids, this is the funniest thing about having, like, a forager family. Their, like, rebellion is, like, they love white rice.
The
What?
pain. The pain.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
One day they'll understand what they had or have, you
yeah,
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's gotta be sad for the dad.
What a
yeah,
rebellion to have, you know?
yeah. I know, they eat, they like white rice and they like button mushrooms.
Oh, no.
Of course. Yeah.
But not any of the wild mushrooms.
That'll hopefully change. I have hopes.
We'll
When they
see.
figure out what flavor is.
Mhm.
So, for the pollen, while we were on all the parts and all that, so you mentioned you harvest them kind of with that deep pan. You gotta watch out that the wind doesn't get them. I assume you could also, like, maybe, get some maybe put a plastic bag over it, and there's gotta be other tricks, other things you can do to harvest them efficiently. Um, what do you do from that point? Like, how do you take them home, and then what? How do you turn them into a food?
Cattail pollen?
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I would just say I go and I sift it because you get a lot of bugs in there and little debris, so I'll take it home and kinda sift it, and then I get this fine powder, and basically, any baking I do or anything like that, which I know you're not a fan of.
Oh,
Um
I like it.
oh, okay. Um, I mean, I know it doesn't fit into the meat department. Maybe you could make, like, a little sprinkle or something,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but, baking with cattails is the best thing to do. Like, I might replace, like, 1/8 of the recipe of something, and specifically, like, one of the best things that I like to do is add them to pancakes.
Okay,
Ooh.
now we're talking. I don't eat a lot of grain, but I can appreciate it, and
You can get done with
you
a
know,
pancake or
there are
2.
there are cheat days, and there are, like, sourdough
Yeah.
flatbreads.
Yeah, so
So
that I mean, for me personally, that's all I would want too. I have gluten problems, which turns out are probably actually just glyphosate problems.
Yeah.
right.
Um, but I yeah, sourdough pancakes with that, made from organic wheat that hasn't been sprayed with Roundup to dry it out.
So
Um,
does the pollen act kind of as a flower? Like, does it have any sort of a binding property to it?
I don't think so. No, I don't
No.
not on its own, but if you add it with enough, wheat or other grains,
Mhm.
it works pretty good.
Okay.
You could probably also make, like, egg pancakes, just pollen and eggs. Make a little. I could see that
Yeah.
being really
Scrumptious.
I think
bright yellow egg discs.
So creative.
Yeah.
the best food is usually the most simple food. Okay.
Yeah.
In my world, at least. But
Pancakes are pretty simple.
Yeah.
don't these pollen have a lot of protein? More so, I think, than carbs even.
Yeah, I think there's protein. There's ample vitamin K. I know that. So
That's good.
yeah, there's I'm lacking here, guys. But basically, there's lots of minerals. I'm sure everything that other pollens have. Like you got to think it's like the beginning of life, and this is a gross way to think about it, but it is like the sperm of the cattail.
Right.
I knew you were going to say it, and I was like, ooh.
I mean, that's basically what it is. So all that, it has a lot of beneficial, like, start of life nutrients.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Are you doing anything for the long-term storage? Like, are you drying it at all, or just toss it in a jar and cap it off?
No, you definitely do. Although it is a powder, you definitely do want to like air dry it for a couple days because there's still some possible residual moisture in there. And then once it's dry, I just kind of put it in a container and put it in the freezer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
And
I was just looking.
Does it last for a pretty long time in the freezer?
Oh yeah,
For a year or so?
Here's the deal though. When you go out and spend 2 hours harvesting cattail pollen, you'll see it's fun, but you're gonna get like, 3 or 4 cups.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, really?
Yeah. So it's like not
Specialty treat.
Yeah, it's a specialty treat. So like
Okay.
basically it doesn't last in the freezer long because I use it up.
Yep, that's fair.
Good to know. Okay. I was just looking up on the background here if I could find anything under nutrition in the pollen. I couldn't find anything readily. But that's really interesting because I thought it would be you going in and you're coming home with like pounds of these
Gallons.
Yeah, no. I had a restaurant here ask me to get them some for their restaurant. And I priced it out. It was like $70 a pound or something, or $80 a pound. I don't know. And I was like, this is what I would be willing to sell it for. And they were like, nah.
Never
Takes you
mind.
8 years to get it. Fine.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, we're definitely going to try the pollen this year. And we will, Lindy makes some really killer sourdough bread. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
we're going to
having
make
it in
some.
there.
It's so cool.
I love doing
the-
different
the-
blends.
The color change that happens is so amazing.
Yeah.
Just bright yellow.
Yeah.
And you said what 15% of your flour in a recipe you'd switch out roughly?
Yeah. I would maybe do like 10-15%, something like that.
I'm more of a just toss it in kind of gal, so we'll see what happens.
You don't do any measuring.
No.
Okay. I make sourdough, but I do a lot of rye.
Oh, I love rye.
Yeah. So I wouldn't add cattail pollen to rye because I think that it would subdue the color of the cattail pollen.
Right.
But
Kind of muddy.
yeah. But I with wheat, sure, I would. But I was just gonna say that I am now single, but I was in a relationship for 8 years almost with a woman who is a professional baker. Like she went to baking college. So she is a scientist, and I learned from her that you gotta, everything's gotta be like measured out. And I got a little scale that weighs grams and all that, So
That's how Poldy is. I am not like that at all.
Yeah.
I see the recipe and I think it's a good suggestion.
Uh-huh.
And the 1 cup turns into however many cups I want to put in there. And that's how it goes. If
Every
it works,
bread
it
is
works.
different.
Yeah, every
Every
bread is
bread is
different. I think that would be my natural tendency as well if I hadn't spent so much time around her.
Yeah.
And like seeing like how her breads came out. But but my natural tendency is definitely chaos and
Yes. That's
like
the most fun.
the biggest thing for bakers, I think, is consistency, and I think they pride themselves on it. It's
Yeah.
part of the skill.
There is a reason I'm not a great baker. We'll clarify that.
Yeah.
It's either going to be, I remember I made cupcakes for my mom. I think it was 6 or 7 years ago for her birthday. These things were sand on the bottom and a burnt hockey puck on the top. I don't know what happened. I actually followed a recipe. That's the sad thing.
Let's not do that when we harvest cattail pollens for 3 hours.
True.
We're going to follow a recipe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I am interested, how big are your guys' cattail patches?
I'm thinking about, there's one down kind of where my parents are, and it's like a 8-foot stretch. That's the only one I can think of offhand. It's not huge.
We're still we still need to scout areas, honestly.
Okay.
This year's the big cattail year for me. So I know we got a lot of riverfront. I don't really know off the top of my head where I'm going to find a solid marsh around here. Mm-hmm. It's going to be hard.
I think I got some
how dry Montana can be. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if we can really give a good answer there. Why were you trying to see that?
I was just going to say that, like, a lot of the spots that I harvest cattail pollen specifically are in like areas where there's cattails the size of a football field.
Wow.
Oh, I don't think we have that. Yeah.
But I would love to find one.
We're going to come out with about 3 tablespoons.
Well, it's a good thing to bring up for people listening, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any expectations?
Are there any cattail lookalikes or anything that resembles them fairly closely?
I don't think so, but there should always be the caveat, like, don't harvest irises, because they look like cattails. I don't know how people could confuse those two. For those that can see my hands, it's like irises grow like this, and cattails grow like this.
Like, are you talking about the leaves right now? Or?
Yeah, the leaves. So they're gonna grow up like this, and then irises are fanned out.
Yeah, fanned out. I can pull up some pictures too, because I did take a note of the iris being one of the lookalikes.
I know, but
especially
that blows my mind that's considered a lookalike.
Here's what you're talking about. The leaves kind of like let's see if I can see that. Get in a bit closer. The leaves kind of come out of the base more to the left and right, kind of like a fan.
Yep. Yeah. They fan out. Yep. And irises are not going to be, they're not going to be like thick, like with a stem that is going to look juicy and delicious. They get a really thin stem that comes up, and then it's going to have like a little flower bud at the end of it, and then it's going to make a flower, and nothing like a cattail. This is like one of those things that's confounded me since I started foraging.
I think here's a good example of what you're talking about, because I did find this. Let me zoom in a bit if I can. It's probably not zooming in, but this is kind of what you're saying, the cross section of both. The iris is a lot more oval shaped and flat, whereas the cattail, the leaves are the base of the cattail plant. If you take a cross section, it's a lot more rounded and tightly packed. Yeah.
Yep.
It's penny versus football.
Yeah, kind of like penny versus football. And then also, here's a good example. I think the iris leaf is very like flat, and the cattail is more of like a crescent, like a little half moon, and more celery-like.
Also, when you squeeze a cattail leaf, it's got air chambers all up and down the leaves because they live in an aquatic environment. So it's actually got insulative value.
Oh,
interesting.
Which is cool. One of the reasons why cattails was used as a sheathing for houses, because cattails all together in that mat that's kind of like back and forth like that, it creates a lot of insulation because there's an air barrier in between the cattails.
Got it. That's kind of cool. So it's
the iris does not have that at all. It's just flat.
Huh.
Yeah.
So iris could be one lookalike, although hard to maybe mess that one up.
Yep.
But just people listening, be aware of that. Also, I think I took a note here. Well, you already talked about that the cattail grows more vertical, the leaves,
Yep.
and the leaves on the iris more on an angle. The other one I wrote down was sweet flag. Have you ever ran into sweet flag?
Yes, it's a favorite plant of mine. I love it. Yeah.
Acorus calamus. If I
Yeah, so
said that right.
that would be the European variety. We have Acorus americanus here, and then
Okay.
and locally there are patches of like it says Eurasian sweet flag.
Yeah.
So that's Acorus calamus, and a lot of people just call it calamus. I like to call it sweet flag. I have spread that plant around as everywhere I can because
Why?
it
You
smells
just love it?
beautiful. I yeah. So the rhizomes are colloquially known as like coca of the north. You can chew them; they give you a lot of energy.
Really?
Whoa.
Yeah. It also kind of like numbs your whole mouth and throat. So like native people would chew it for singing, like when they do the powwows.
Okay.
Huh.
Yeah, they can sing at like higher octaves.
That's
That's
kind of
super
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Maybe
And
I can make my American Idol debut after all.
uh,
You know?
yeah. It's an amazing plant. I I love it, and it's got that weird penis-like protrusion of a flower.
Yeah, and that is a big giveaway. Like
Yes, it
compared
is.
to a cattail, this like
Yeah, yeah,
angled flower head that you talk
That
about
definitely looks a lot more like a corn,
yeah.
like a
than the
unpeeled
cattail.
corn cob.
Do you
Yep,
guys
than the
do you
cattail.
guys know what the doctrine of signatures is?
No.
Mm.
It's the idea, and I don't buy into it, but it's the idea that a plant looks a certain way and it's there to help an ailment of your body. So guess what this would be for men?
Oh,
Like a natural Viagra.
Yeah. Yeah.
you would
Interesting.
think.
Yeah. But that's a cool plant and it doesn't have any association, I would say, with cattail other than it can be in the same environment.
Mm.
It's got very deeply dark green, like bright green leaves. And when you rub those leaves, they smell super fragrant. That's why they're called sweet flag.
And
Hmm.
that's also a big giveaway. Like if it smells like that, it's not a cattail, right?
Yep.
If it
It's
has
very,
that
very
pleasant odor.
aromatic. Yep.
And this that flower head usually grows like halfway up the plant from what I was reading on an angle, whereas the cattail, the spike we looked at, like comes out on the top of the stem, like always vertical, pointing to the sky.
Mm.
Precisely.
So, but the sweet flag I read is it's toxic. So you're saying maybe don't eat it, but you could chew
No, it's not toxic.
it's not okay.
No,
Just
so
the
this is
internet.
this is one of those things where so it does contain beta acerone, which is like one of those like banned substances, but beta acerone is actually not present in American sweet flag. It's only
Mm.
present in high amounts in Eurasian sweet flag. So we can chew ours all we want. Now, I will say I used to chew it all the time, and I did have a dentist tell me that my gums looked a little funny one time. So so I kind of backed it off a little bit.
So
Interesting.
you're not a dipper. You're not doing chewing
Mm,
tobacco, but
yeah. I'm like walking around with a wad and people are like, "Oh, he must be chewing tobacco." Nope, it's just sweet
yeah.
flag.
Oh my
I'm a
god.
forager.
I'm high energy. High
Yeah,
energy.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's kind of cool.
interesting.
So those are the two plants to maybe familiarize yourself with a bit when going to harvest cattail. But the cool thing about cattails is that, I mean, the they're perennials, right? So the growth from the year before will still be there, likely be there when you go find a patch. I mean, that's
Mhm.
probably how you go. I assume that's your way of scouting for patches. Is just kind of maybe go in. in the winter and look for those dead cattail plants.
Yes. I mean, if you're needing to scout, there's no better plant because they end up just kind of staying upright and just existing there. And then another cool way you could find cattails, I don't know if this would work for you guys, but red-winged blackbirds nest in cattail patches here.
Oh.
And so if you just hear red-winged blackbirds, you're like, there's got to be cattails.
We do have those
Smart.
here, so
Yeah, we do have those.
yeah.
Now I got to learn what they sound like. And it sounds like there's also some ecosystem value for cattails, like you just mentioned, the nesting, like it's cover for plants, for animals, it's food. What else? Probably do you know of any other value to the ecosystem?
Yeah, so have you guys ever heard of any of the natural, water filtration plants that exist in the country?
No.
There's a couple of them where they actually take, raw sewage and just, run it right through a whole, series of wetlands.
Hmm.
And then it's, pure clean water on the other side. Cattails do a great job at that.
That's insane. That's super
Interesting.
cool.
Yep.
Be good to maybe
That's
make
one-
a little
That's a good
water
way to do
tank
it.
at home.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Maybe I wonder if people in the past knew about that, They had to. I feel like they
Yeah.
had to. They knew where to get their water from to some extent.
Yep, definitely.
Or where to go for their water filtration.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm still gonna filter any water or boil something, even if it's coming from a cattail patch, because I mean, at least here, if there's cattails around, there's probably beavers, and I don't
Right.
want to get
Giardia.
I don't want to get giardia, which is another thing I should mention really quick. If you are harvesting cattails, another reason that I preferentially harvest from mucky environments rather than watery environments is because I can eat them raw. So I don't like to harvest from water because we do have such a high population of beavers here in Michigan.
Okay, smart.
And I don't want giardia.
No, definitely not.
That's fair.
So for people who are worried, it's probably just a good idea to cook the ingredients. Heat them up well. And, while we're on that, I mean, you kind of mentioned, okay, you can use the pollen. We can eat some of it raw, but are there any favorite recipes you have maybe with the shoots that we haven't touched on yet?
I really like to pickle them.
Oh,
I think that they taste amazing pickled. I one time had a cattail kimchi somebody made. That was pretty good.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I bet that's really good.
Yeah.
so I assume they did a bunch
Yeah.
of cross-section cuts, yeah.
Yep. Chop it up. Yeah. Other than that, in my opinion, cattail shoots do not lend themselves to cooking, except for some springs. I like to go out and gather a whole bunch of greens and all kinds of things, and then I'll take chicken stock and make a vegetarian soup, except for the fact that you've got chicken stock. And I'll put cattail shoots in it, and it's okay. I don't not anything I'd recommend, but
Crazy.
yeah.
I could see it kind of being like leeks maybe in a soup.
Except for cucumber and not onion.
Okay.
Huh.
Okay. That's really the flavor. It's the cucumber flavor.
Yeah.
Maybe a Greek salad or something.
Yeah, that would probably be good. I know that there's chefs out there that could make something phenomenal with it.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
I feel that way too.
Yeah.
I feel that way too.
I mean, one time I had a chef make a bergamot, wild bergamot soda, and it was really good. And I was like, I can't believe the things that these people come up with.
Yeah, I'm a very much a simple food eater and not very extravagant with what I cook. But our friend Chef Will, he would know what to do. He would know what to do for sure. I can see it though, going that pickling or lacto-fermenting route. I could see that being the way to use these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're like me, you make man meals.
Yeah.
No. I make lady meals. I like to get funky.
Yeah.
It might turn out, it might not.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like me and Poldy, like I could totally, like if it was just up to me, make like a one pot meal, just shove everything into us, and then just eat it right out of the pot.
All the time.
That's what I do, but I make like a 50 ingredient one pot meal.
Nice.
There's a lot going on.
That's literally most we eat is like the basis meat, and then we add in our veggies. And like in this case, it would be like I can see ourselves making like a bowl of like ground elk, and then having lacto fermented cattail shoots. That would make my night.
Yeah, that sounds
That's
awesome.
all I need.
Yeah, Polly would be so happy. Be like, wow, a bowl of meat, thanks. This is the best.
Oh.
So definitely a lot of good food value for these cattails. What about medicinal? Are you aware of any there?
I should have done a little bit more research. I don't know. I'll tell you what. Cattails, when you're picking the shoots, they've got some slime on them. And I don't know if this is true or not. It's just like an intuition I had. But like sometimes it'll be like sunny out and I'll rub the slime on my neck to like stop the sunlight.
Gross.
I know.
Like a sunscreen.
Yep. Yeah, like a sunscreen. It probably doesn't do anything.
I bet it does have some, I'm thinking aloe vera right now.
Yeah.
Is that kind of just
That's where my mind was,
It has probably some similar substances. So people watching right now or listening, jump to the YouTube video or leave it in the comments if you know about that, the medicinal properties of cattails. Be interesting to hear from someone who's played around with it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. So is there anything with cattails we didn't cover? I feel like we went pretty deep.
Yeah. I don't think so. I think we covered most of it. I mean, without getting like really intensely nerdy, like because like I mentioned before, there's the whole debate about cattails being native or not, the narrowleaf cattail. And then
you sound like you want to get nerdy.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying like I will say ethically it is probably a good idea to preferentially go and harvest narrowleaf cattails because most people consider those to be non-native to our country. So harvest away. I mean, that's something that I like to say anytime anybody's like questioned me about foraging anyway. Hey, I'm just taking the invasive species. I'm just doing my duty as a citizen.
Right.
Just pulling weeds.
Yeah. So
that's true. It's always good to recommend, or it always feels good to recommend, you can harvest as much as you want because it's invasive.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing I will say, there is a disparity in locations sometimes, and Phragmites australis tends to take over cattail patches, but in my experience, they only take over patches that are on like roadsides. And so it gives foragers this idea that cattails are being endangered. So what I'll notice is that Southern Michigan foragers will sometimes say it's irresponsible to harvest cattails. And I'm like looking around like at these massive football field sized patches of cattails, and I'm like, there's no Phragmites in sight anywhere. And as I mentioned before, I've done like some studies for just of my own. They're not getting oh yeah, there's Phragmites in the picture. Yep.
Those are ginormous.
Yep. And that is an invasive species. And quite problematic.
I've definitely seen that. It's just a giant patch of a very tall plant. But the cattail can get pretty tall too, right? It can get like 6 foot, 7 feet tall.
Yeah. Yeah. Not that tall. Phragmites will get like 10, 12 feet tall sometimes.
So when we're out there harvesting cattails, when we see this, you recommend getting rid of that?
You can do your best to pull it, but make sure you don't cut it or pull it when it's got seed heads on it.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's always the thing about invasives. I always see people. I just saw this recently last year in our local park here that we like to forage. They had they had a invasive plant pull day, and then they like pulled it with the flower on there, and then they just left it all in a bunch, like there on the property
where they
I'm
weren't originally at. So now there's tons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, that didn't help.
That's pretty funny. Yeah. I was trying to organize a garlic mustard pull competition. But I was working with somebody and we just didn't get it off the ground.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm. I was going to have
local foraging event.
Yeah. I was going to have prizes and games and cooking competition, all this stuff, but
that would be so fun.
Mm-hmm.
Be like a relay race for foragers.
Yeah.
I thought about organizing something like that for invasives around here because we have a lot of different invasives.
Mm-hmm.
So
it'd be a fun like round robin. You guys ever do a round robin?
Mm-hmm.
No.
It's like it's a 4-H thing. Yeah. Where it's like if you showed dogs, yeah, I know. If you showed dogs for the round robin, you now show dogs and horses and cows and sheep and chickens, even though you have never shown those before.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a chance to place best in all of the different categories. It's like a cooking category and be super fun.
So maybe it's different in Montana, but you saying you did 4-H tells me a lot about your childhood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're probably pretty rural, right?
Yeah, I hung out with pigs and my horses.
Yeah. Lindy grew up very rural, like driving a truck at like 10 years old.
Yeah.
That kind of rural.
Yeah. I had a little 5-speed Toyota pickup truck, and it was awesome.
That's why we get along.
Yeah.
So well.
That's cool.
You got the big city guy and then me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm a big city guy, but definitely a bit more civilized.
Yeah, I'm not a good dinner guest.
That's so funny.
I liven up the conversations, though.
Yeah. Well, you got to have one of each.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
I think it's kind of like weird when you see a relationship where both people are like super extroverted or super introverted.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of better, I think, when you got one of each.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, can drag each other along, or can be like, okay, let's chill for one day or not. Yeah, I agree. Man,
definitely.
All right. Well, Clay, I think we covered all the cattail stuff I wanted to talk about. I was going to maybe talk a bit more about like what cattail actually looks like, but I mean, I think people already are pretty well versed in what cattail looks like, and they can look up pictures and get a good idea for what they look like. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we showed some pictures, so I think we covered that pretty well. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know. I wish I had more to add too, but we just haven't foraged for them yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm definitely planning on doing some videos, some vlogs around, my first experience with them. So that'll be good. And what else did I have here? I guess one question I did have that I thought you might be the right person to ask is like, when we're out there looking for cattails as foragers, are there any other edible plants we should be looking for that grow in like a similar area?
I mean, that's very context dependent on what state you're in or what ecosystem you're in. You might have wetlands that contain watercress, for instance.
Right.
So that would be something that I would look out for, watercress, which is also invasive in North America. So
really, I didn't know. Oh, we talked about that, Lindy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all in but like North Dakota or something like that. In every state but one.
Yep.
I think. Yeah.
It's everywhere. It's so abundant. And in my experience, only likes to grow in clear, clean water.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I have same experience for me.
Yeah.
Always just trout streams, and trout can only live in really clean water. So
Yeah.
that's where I find the watercress. Another one I was thinking of that I haven't really foraged for at all is what is it, wapato or leaf, I think it's called.
Yep.
It's like almost like a water potato, I think, or like.
Yeah. You gotta try it out. It's really fun. You get in there, and that is one where you kind of get in the muck and work your feet around, and then the tubers float to the surface.
Yeah,
that might not be for me.
That's exactly what we're gonna do, Lindy.
I'm a texture person. I don't do the mud and water.
While we dig for the laterals, we're also gonna look for the wapato, I think it's called, because they should be out here. I'm pretty sure we have them in Montana.
You definitely do. And just a quick little note here. Have you ever seen The Hunger Games?
Oh, yeah.
I have not, actually.
Okay. What?
I know.
Anyway, so Katniss Everdeen, if you read the books, her dad was really into foraging and plants. And he named his daughters Katniss and Primrose. And Katniss is the East Coast, like, Native American name for that plant, wapato.
Ah.
So her name Katniss means arrowhead.
You're helping me so much pick our movie night.
But that clicks because she's got the arrow and the bow and arrow and everything. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
I love when authors do that kind of stuff, connections everywhere. That's cool. Sweet. Yeah. All right, man. I guess maybe if you had one overall tip for cattail foraging, one single best advice, anything you could give to the viewers, to listeners?
Just get out there. Just look around. I mean, even, there's no bad experience, in my opinion, when you're trying to get out and forage, because you're getting out there in nature. Don't hesitate. Don't think, oh no, I'm not going to be able to harvest enough. Just get out there. Even if you harvest 2 shoots, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, totally. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
It's a great tip. And then also pay attention to, what else is going around. If you're not harvesting a lot of what you're setting out to look for, maybe there's something else you notice and discover another edible plant, That's how I found the Dame's Rocket last year. I was looking for nettle patches, and I'm like, well, this kind of looks like nettle, but what is it? And then I went down the rabbit hole. I'm like, holy crap.
I still think about that one.
Dame's Rocket is my favorite grain.
Oh, yeah.
It's the best.
We cooked it, and it tasted like popcorn.
We took the
flower.
The flower heads, unopened ones, when they're still bunched up, almost like a broccoli floret. Cooked those up in some fat. I think we did butter and literally like wild popcorn. Super tasty.
Yeah, it was crazy.
There's a video of that on the channel.
Oh, cool. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dame's Rocket it's like one of those plants I'm like, I wish this wasn't invasive, when I plant it in my garden.
Yeah. And a lot of people do. I think that's why it is invasive, partially because it's beautiful and has food value and all that.
Yeah.
This year I want to take it and try to make mustard out of the seeds. Because it is in the mustard family, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So, yeah.
How very German of you.
Yeah, yes. Right. With my elk brats.
Yes.
Nice. It's been fun talking to you guys.
Yeah, no, I totally appreciate your time. No, we went a little over. But Clay, where can people find out more about you? Do your classes, plug the podcast you co-host and everything?
I can be found at Clay Bowers on Facebook or Instagram. Instagram is Clay2_Bowers. I didn't do that on purpose. And then I have a website, which is nomiforager.com. Nomi meaning Northern Michigan. And all my classes can be found there. I have a whole bunch of blogs throughout the years that I've written on that website. And then, yeah. Oh, and then
you got your Substack.
Oh, and I have a Substack. Yep. And that was just Clay Bauer's Substack. And then I have the podcast, Publicly Challenged, me and Luke Oswald.
You guys have been cranking out some great episodes.
Well, we haven't put one out in quite a while, Luke. It's been like 3 weeks.
Kiddo, right?
Yeah, he's got it. Yeah.
Well, but you guys were for a while, like cranking one out a week, which is impressive.
Well, we have podcasts waiting to be released, but they're just, I don't know. I'm not trying to hound him on it. I'm letting him do it on his own time.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
But awesome. All right, man. Thanks for joining.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.